Kamatakapi, Kamakorapi. Chante washte yuha nape chiuzapero. Mato Jojo Dakota makiapero. Russ McDonald washitu makiapero. Many wakan oyate ha Sahnish ha Hidatsa ha Hunkpapa oyate ki amataha. Hello, friends and relatives. I shake all your hands with a good heart. My Dakota name is Whistling Bear, and my European name is Russ McDonald. I'm an enrolled member of the Spirit Lake Dakota Nation and a proud descendant of the Rickra, Hidatsa, and Hunkpapa peoples. I want to thank First Lady Catherine and Governor Burgum and the organizing committee of Recovery Reinvented for inviting me to share my story with you this afternoon. This type of gathering is so important to helping those suffering from these illnesses to be aware you are not alone and that recovery is possible. I want to tell you a little bit about what it's like, what happened, and what it's like now. I remember I wasn't able to see over the top of the table yet as a little kid, but I remember my uncles used to drink wine, and I remember they were sitting at the kitchen table drinking, and they put some wine in a cap and they gave it to me. And I remember liking the taste and asking for more. And I remember they sure got a kick out of that. My uncles on my mom's side, there were 6 brothers, and 5 of them served in the military, and 4 of them seen combat. And my grandpa was in the National Guard. On my dad's side, my grandfather was in World War II in Normandy, and one of my aunties was in the Navy. Veterans Day was yesterday, and so I just want to recognize all veterans in the audience and ask you to stand and let us thank you for your service today. After that time, I remember drinking a couple beers when I was about 9 years old. The family was out swimming, and there were some beers in a car. Everyone was down by the lake, and I went back to the car, and I had a couple of those beers. I remember not liking the taste, but I drank them anyway. I don't really remember feeling a buzz, but I remember acting drunk or acting how I seen others act when they were drunk. I don't really remember drinking after that until about the 8th grade graduation. My folks were still drinking yet, and they threw a big party, so I was able to steal some drinks and hang in there with the adults. I also remember trying marijuana for the first time the previous summer. I was kind of scared of it, but I wanted to try it, so my friend bought a joint and we smoked it. I was faking inhaling like Clinton did when he was in college. So, I believe I was just trying to fit in with my peers at that time. I ended up drinking and smoking weed pretty regularly throughout high school, and I did inhale. So, in the summer of '78, my dad went to treatment for alcohol. My mom didn't go to treatment, but she didn't drink anymore in support of my dad. I remember my folks doing the amends with us kids, although at the time I didn't understand. I came to understand the importance of this 16 years later. My folks are in the audience. My mom was able to make it today, and thanks to their prayers and support, I'm here today. Can we please give her a round of applause? And also the family that's here with us today. I graduated in 1981 as valedictorian of our class and went into the U.S. Army that fall. I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic, and we didn't get any time off until the 6th weekend when most of us proceeded to go drinking. At the PX Class 6, which is a government liquor store, and at the Enlisted Men's Club, we just needed to show a military ID, and we could buy a beer and liquor. So a lot of us did that weekend, and 2 weeks later when we graduated, they loaded us up on buses after graduation, and I ended up in Fort Gordon, Georgia for combo school. Fort Gordon is right outside Augusta, Georgia, and we were down there every payday to party. Now in Georgia, you have to be 21 years old to legally get in bars, but they didn't care as long as you had a military ID, so you've seen a lot of us 18-year-olds hitting the bars. Weed and hash were also pretty available if you wanted to, and I wanted to. So I was done with my school and waiting for orders when I received a call that my older brother was killed. The Army gave me 30 days of leave, which was normal for those going overseas, but also I was given the time to attend his funeral. All that went fine, but I ended up partying pretty hard and went AWOL for a couple extra days before returning. That evening, I returned to post. I was waiting to see if the commander to receive an Article 15, which is a disciplinary action in the military. And I could hear him really giving the business to whoever was in his office. The sergeant who was assisting the commander said, "Come back tomorrow morning as this one has taken longer than expected." So the next morning in formation, the sergeant says, "McDonald, your new orders came in, I'll process in 3 days and get off my post. So I lucked out and I didn't get disciplined that time. I went overseas to Germany for 18 months, and the Army was like a regular job, except we ended up in the field quite a bit. There were a lot of Vietnam soldiers in Germany in 1982, and they partied hard. And I ended up fitting in pretty good with them. Any type of drug you wanted could be found in the barracks, so I ended up trying most of them except for heroin. The only reason why I didn't try it, I guess I was kind of scared of it a little bit, was because my friends warned me not to do this drug. They said this drug was a good high, but it could really take over your life. Marijuana wasn't really available in Germany, only hash. Seems funny because hash is made out of marijuana. I never did figure that one out, but at that time there was still a 3-strike rule in place for positive urinalysis tests before you're kicked out. I ended up popping positive on 2 UA tests before being shipped back to Fort Stewart, Georgia at the end of my 18 months. So I lucked out again in not being disciplined for my usage. Nowadays, if you test positive once, you're done. So on a positive note, in regard to my usage, I had a clean slate when I came back stateside. I went on a couple of 30-day leaves during my time in the service and would pretty much party throughout my whole time being home. Everyone was glad to see me and would pick me up and to go party, and I didn't say no. I'd say I'd stay home during the day, but would end up somewhere throughout the night. I was a good soldier, a hard worker, and received a promotion at my new duty post. I had friends who would drink in the morning after physical training, but I never did. I guess I didn't really feel right to drink in the morning unless you had drank all night. Then it was okay. So I also met a girl and was married, and we had a son. We also were divorced within the same year. We were both young and met while both of us were partying, so our relationship was a little bit shaky from the start. Due to my using, I ended up not seeing my son until his high school graduation when he was 18 years old. We have a good relationship today, and he's been alcohol and drug-free for a little over a year now. My Sarge, he asked me to re-enlist, but I knew if I stayed in any longer, I would most likely receive a dishonorable discharge due to my drug usage. Everyone seemed to be fine with drinking, but not drugs. I was beginning to, I don't know why. I was beginning to recognize or perhaps protect my using by modifying my situation, which in this case would be the geographical change of moving home. Once my time in the service was complete and I returned home, the structure was gone. I would party for days. I was acting like I was on leave, but I didn't have to go back now. So I would just blow off work, keep partying, and having a good time. I began drinking in the morning regularly to knock off the shakes. We would joke around about it and just have another drink. One morning, I went to my folks' house after a long binge, and I ended up having a grand mal seizure due to alcohol withdrawal, and this changed everything for me. I decided and tried to quit drinking, but I felt miserable. Eventually, I decided if being sober feels this way, then I might as well be drinking, and I would start drinking again. Then I was scared to sober up because I thought I was going to have a seizure, and I would have these anxiety attacks. I ended up at Fort Meade, South Dakota for my first treatment for alcohol. I thought I'd figure out how to stay sober. I wouldn't figure out how to stay sober for another 15 treatments over the course of the next 9 years. 3 times down at Fort Meade, 12 times at Jamestown State Hospital, and 1 outpatient up in Minot. I was sober the longest at 8 months right before doing the Minot outpatient when I fell off again. After that time, I decided I wasn't going to try and sober up anymore. I decided that I'm unable to quit, and I must just be stuck this way. I had tried all those times, and each time I truthfully tried my best. I went to aftercare and went to AA and NA meetings, but eventually I would feel miserable. I went to a variety of churches and to ceremonies to find a spirituality piece everyone in recovery seemed to be talking about. I still worked off and on, then went to school. It took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree, but everything revolved around the drinking, and I was still smoking weed too. I would quit drinking and just smoke weed until eventually I would think a beer would go good with the high, and I would end up on a drunk again and on another binge. At the end, I was drinking too hard and long. I dropped out of school and wasn't working anymore, only drinking. I would come to in the morning and have a couple of shots, and I would black out. Then I would come to in the nighttime, have a couple more shots, then black back out, and come to in the morning again. I was losing days. Sometimes I didn't even know the difference between sunup and sundown. I'd wake up in the morning and think it was the evening. Recently, one of my friends who drank like I did, he asked me, he said, "Did you ever feel like you were going to die if you didn't get a drink?" I started laughing because I woke up many mornings feeling that way, but I never heard someone verbalize this filling before. Only those who had been addicted understand this feeling. This is one of our common bonds as alcoholics and addicts. We know the torment of withdrawal and severe withdrawal. So what happened? Well, one morning I'm up doing my normal routine. I'd get up, I'd throw up, I'd go to the bathroom, then have a drink to straighten out. I was only drinking wine by then because that's the only thing I could hold down. So I always had a half a gallon on hand. Plus they're a good value at only $4.50. When we were younger, said we would never drink wine, but now I understood why they drank wine. Anyway, I'm sitting there alone. There's no one in the house but me, and I'm too weak and shaky to hold up to half a gallon, so I'm spilling wine all over myself. So I get this big Hardy's cup, and I pour the wine into the cup, and I lift it up to get a drink. Now, I remember I had alcohol withdrawal seizures, but I never had DTs. So I'm sitting there after a couple of drinks looking at the wall, and I hear a voice behind me, just like I'm talking to you right now. This voice says to me, there's a better way to live than this. I knew there wasn't anyone in that room with me, but I answered and I said, I know. Then I looked behind me and made sure there was no one standing there. I took a couple more drinks, then got cleaned up and headed to Chemical Health to see if I can get into treatment again. I did this on my own, and no one took me this time. When they brought me to GM4 in Jamestown, all the nurses and staff knew me, so they're saying, good to see you, glad you're still alive yet. They put me in front of they put me in detox again, then after a couple of days, they brought me in front of the intake staff. They said, we have a new program for guys like you, guys that have been here numerous times. We'd like you to try it out. I was still pretty shaky yet, but I said yes. About a week later, I'm kind of eating normal by then. I go into the first session, and a counselor says, I want to take you through this book, and if you do everything I tell you to do, I guarantee you will get sober. I agreed and committed myself to completing the steps. I had nothing left to use. And I seen my counselor in the hallway today, and Cheryl Oster, along with his wife, Darlene, retired, are here today. Looking back, I never realized I had completed the first step. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. I realize that now, that when I decided I wasn't going to try to quit anymore, that I had truly surrendered to drinking. The second step came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him, occurred when I agreed to do everything that my counselor told me to do. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves, required some effort as I did my best to write down not just what I did wrong, but also what I did right. I came to realize that I wasn't all bad and that I had done some good in my life. Many times I think we're walking around carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders due to the guilt we feel for not doing what we're supposed to have done because of our drink and our use. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs, required that I share my inventory with someone. I went through my inventory with the priest at the hospital. When we finished up, he said, take some time and think about what you told me. Come back this afternoon and we'll see if there's anything else. I ended up doing another one about a year later with one of my sponsors. Down in Jamestown, there's a sidewalk when you come out in front of the church. When I came out of the church, you can go to the left or right on the sidewalk. But to me, the sidewalk symbolized that I now had a choice to drink or not to drink that I didn't have prior to going into the church that morning. I went to the left, I sparked up a smoke and took a walk. As I'm walking to the west, I hear an eagle hollering from up above. Our people see the eagle as a carrier of our prayers to the Creator. To me, this is a sign or a blessing that I was on the right track. I also believe from this experience that God works with us where we are at in our sobriety. He knew I understood my culture more than I understood the Bible, and He knew I needed a sign. There used to be a soccer field to the south of campus, so I go to the field to acknowledge a sign. I put out some tobacco. I sang a song, and I said a little prayer. I believe this is the beginning of my spiritual walk. I was open to what the Creator had for me, although I wasn't really comfortable with prayer at the time. My previous thinking was that God didn't really want to hear from me because of the way I had been living. So I did my best to not call upon Him, except when I was really hungover. It's like when you know people don't like, it's like when you know people don't drink like you do, so you stay away from them. I can say that I didn't understand God then how I understand Him now, but I came to believe that a higher power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. A higher power as I understood Him, not anyone else's understanding. A personal relationship. At that point, my understanding was people. God hadn't come and spoken to me except for that day I was spilling wine all over myself. But I believe God has put the people I needed in place when I needed them to get me through whatever I was going through. About a year ago, I heard my dad telling his story at some public gathering. He shared he was sitting at the kitchen table at the house we grew up in with his drink. He was home alone and he heard a voice. The voice said, "There's a better way to live than this." The same words that were said to me 16 years later. So a friend helped him to treatment that day. I honestly believe God or an angel or one of our relatives from the other side seen our pain and alcoholism and talked to us to encourage us to get better. There are a couple things that are important in understanding ourselves in regard to addiction. The first is a mental obsession, and the second is our allergy to alcohol or drugs. As long as we don't take that first drink or drug, we don't have to worry about the allergy. While we know what happens if we take that first drink or drug, sure, there's been times we've been able to get away with it, but if we do this long enough, sooner or later, we end up on a binge. So really, if we don't take that first drink or drug, all we have to worry about is the mental obsession. That's the tough one. There's something wrong with us that no matter how many times we've been in jail, been in fights, or broken relationships, we continue to think we can drink or drug safely, when everything in our history shows otherwise. Our goal is to be healthy enough that the mental obsession is gone, and we are not obsessing over using again. I found in my walk I was only able to overcome the obsession through a spiritual awakening or a change of attitude, whatever you want to call it. This is necessary to gain sobriety. I'm not talking about not drinking or drugging. I'm talking about truly enjoying this life that's been given to us one day at a time. I still think about drinking a beer on a hot day after cutting grass. I still think about smoking a joint when I see a good sci-fi movie, and those sci-fi movies are getting better every day. I think that's normal, considering I'm an alcoholic and addict. So I just accept that. But I don't take that first drink or drug, and I'm fine one day at a time. The first year was hardest because I had to learn how to respond to everything anew. Before I drank, I was happy, sad, or angry, and now I had to figure out how to do all of these things sober. So the first year was the hardest, and each year afterwards, things became a little bit easier. So what's it like now? July 14th was the last day I drank, so my first day of not drinking is July 15th. So July 15th of this year marks 25 years of being alcohol and drug-free for me. I worked for the chemical health program and the alcohol prevention program at Chandeskachika Community College for about 2 years after I first sobered up. The grant I was working on ended, so I lost my job and I got married. You know, I needed a good provider to take care of me, and she was working 2 jobs when we started going out. One of her jobs was over at Walmart as a door greeter, and I don't know if those door greeters are supposed to hug you, but she used to hug me whenever I came into Walmart. So I asked her out. My wife Francine is here in the audience, and we've been married 23 years now. With no job, I decided to go back to school, and this has to be one of the best decisions of my life. Of course, us alcoholics have to go to extremes on everything, so I ended up getting the highest degree you can get. Joking aside, each time I completed a degree, other doors opened to continue, so I just kept going to school. During and after school, I was blessed with wonderful jobs, such as a research analyst and assistant professor positions at the University of North Dakota. We ended up moving home, and I became the Spirit Lake Planning Director, Chandeskachika Community College Vice President of Academic Affairs, the Spirit Lake Nation Chairman, and now the United Tribes Technical College President. In all of the higher level positions I've had, I've been able to help or develop or enhance policies that help those suffering from these illnesses. I believe in consistency and equity, and I believe there are times when we need to be open to creating or providing opportunity to assist our employees with the resources to get well. Or we provide tough love for our employees or relatives that we feel they're not putting forth the appropriate effort to stay sober. We need to suffer the consequences of our actions, whether positive or negative. And we must watch out for self-pity. One time I was sharing at a meeting, and one of the old-timers after the meeting walked up to me and tried to hand me a $5 bill. I said, "What's that for?" He said, "Well, you're feeling so sorry for yourself that you're probably gonna go drink, so here's $5 to get you started." I didn't take the money, but he was right, and I got myself back on track and started working my program. Alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful, and we must always be on guard. And more importantly, doing maintenance in the form of prayer and meditation, sharing our story when possible. When we enable those who are having addiction issues, we may be preventing them from recovery. One of the times in between my binges, I told my folks, don't help me anymore. When I come to ask you for money because I really have a bad hangover and I need a drink to get well, don't help me. This is enabling. So they didn't help me anymore, and there were times I wished I would have just kept my damn mouth shut. My point is, we have to have a healthy balance in how we approach our interactions with those suffering from these illnesses. I also believe those who have suffered from addictions are better able to help those who are addicted. We know how it feels to wake up thinking we are going to die if we don't get a drink or a drug. The Dakota people say matakiwasan, which means all my relatives or everything is related. I have come to believe I am a part of the universe and I have a role here on this earth as a human being. Dakotas believe that there are 7 directions. The 4 directions, then there's Wankantanka, or the Great Spirit, Uchimakao, or Mother Earth, and then there's us as human beings. We're the 7th direction. We're all a part of this life, and we're all only here for a short time to fulfill the plan for our time here on earth. So we have to make good use of our time here. On my Christian side, the Bible says, Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah goes on in 29:11, for know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. I want to go back to my previous comments before I close. I don't want anyone to think that any of the treatments, church, or ceremonial meetings were a waste of time. I believe all those are positives, along with the negatives of being in jail, hungover, or lost jobs, that all are part of my journey that has brought me to being sober today. I have to keep my feet on the ground. I have to remember where I came from, and this is why I tell my story. I cannot allow success to give me grandiose thinking that I'm a big shot. We have to remain humble in how we carry ourselves. This is a spiritual walk. Alcoholism or drug addiction doesn't care about the color of your skin or how you pray or what tax bracket you fall in or what job you have. This is an illness that will kill us if we do not recover. I believe there's always been a blessing on me, a protection from all those car wrecks, fights, and the bad environments that I went in to buy drugs. I believe we are here for a reason of just to share our story with that one person in our audience today who needed to hear our story. Just like I heard someone else share theirs on my way here. We need to give away what's been given to us. By sharing my story, I get to stay sober. That's how it works. So thank you to everyone for helping me stay sober another day. Nina, open up. That's it.